Now, if you're someone that thinks that quiches are easy to like, but hard to love, I can confidently tell you that I was in the same boat as you until recently. Recently, the members of our French cooking club unanimously voted for us to create a new quiche course, which we started. Since I started that course, I have to say that I've totally changed my mind. I am now a convert. I've rediscovered quiche making and discovered that you can make amazing quiches. And today I wanted to share with you one of the early recipes that I've created in our classic section. So we start with the quiche Lorraine, not going to show this, and then we make a quiche au fromage. It's a cheese quiche, but this one I've made a triple cheese quiche with a hand-picked selection of gourmet cheese of my choice that I've made with my own little twist. And this has become one of my favorite all-time cheese quiche I've ever tasted. It is absolutely crazy amazing. And if you like cheese, you're going to want to try that quiche. Now for the crust, and because the courses are quite detailed, there's all kinds of steps, I'm going to leave you 3 options. You can use your favorite short crust at home, okay? If you bought our book here, you can use the all-round short crust from there. And if you don't have anything, I'll put a link in the video description for a short crust. And we'll start the video with the blind baking of the crust. Then we look at the ingredients, the selection, the cheeses, the assembly, the cooking, and the degustation of that quiche. And you will see what I mean, how it looks like, and how I feel about it. Now for the course, if you want to know about it, it's going to be released in a nutshell before Christmas. And we're coming at you with 7 types of short crust, including a retro short crust, classic, a gourmet, dairy-free short crust, gluten-free short crust, and more. And the course covers the classic, how to make quiches with meat, vegetable, seafood. Then we tackle dairy-free quiches, we've got gluten-free quiches, exotic flavors. And we finish with an Escoffier-style quiche, never seen before, restaurant style, using high-level, high-end culinary techniques to make it's something one of a kind. But that's for the course. What I want to show you here is the video. Let's begin right now with the blind baking. Let's cheese up. When you're ready to roll your dough, take your short crust out of the fridge or even the freezer if you froze it, for instance. Remember, you can freeze this for several weeks. But the most important always, doesn't matter if it's frozen or not, you have to leave it there until it becomes really malleable. Don't start to roll or attempt anything before then, okay? Now, because we've done the rolling and the lining already in the demonstration of the quiche Lorraine, I'm just going to go ahead and we will resume when the short crust is going to be inside the dish. Now this is a 10 inches or 26 centimeter quiche pan. It is porcelain, as I said. If you want, you can line a little bit of butter. But because we're going to be blind baking here, I'm not going to do it. But if you don't feel comfortable with the dish you use, please put some butter in there. And like I said, dusting of flour to avoid anything sticking. And here we are. So I've rolled my dough. I've lined up my quiche pan on here. And this is the excess of dough that I've got for the whole thing. One of the tricky bits here with that sort of mold, you see the edges are very, very large. They're not as tight as the other one and the other one that we had before. So it's very important to kind of put your finger within each of the dents there to push really at a straight angle a little bit to make sure every edges, see all the dent on here, that the dough goes totally against here. Otherwise, again, it can shrink. But we're going to be blind baking, so same thing as before. Remember, even for the blind baking, we're going to make the holes. Now, when you blind bake, by the way, you can also afford to have your crust a little bit thicker. I've left mine a little bit thicker than usual. I like to have a good crust because it's blind baked, so we're going to be making sure that this has been pre-cooked. For the blind baking, and you're going to put a piece of kitchen paper, parchment paper, on the bottom of your, of your quiche pan on the crust, touching the crust, and make sure with your finger it really goes flat all along the edges. And because otherwise the beads are not going to cover that surface, and this is not going to cook the same way. So ideally, you want to do that first, and then you can use rice or beans or whatever. These are ceramic beads like we've seen before, very handy. And I want to make sure they're really covering all the base, all the edges and everything. Now, you don't want a loose patch because the dough can balloon up. Okay, so you want to cook it evenly. All done. I'm going to preheat my oven at 200 degrees Celsius, and as soon as it's hot, I'm going to put that in, and we're going to cook this like this for about 15 minutes, and I'll show you the result. After 15 minutes, the blind baking is finished. I've removed the ceramic beads and the paper, and this is the result. As you can see, the crust has got a nice color. This is pre-cooked, there was no holes or whatever, and this is why I like this crust, because it colors well, and most of all, again, if you look at here, it did not shrink. And this is the common problem with a lot of crust, but the one with the eggs, I like it because it really does not shrink at all. Look at this. Hasn't barely moved, and it is now ready to receive, of course, the filling. Now, before you can put the filling, you're gonna have to leave this to cool down for a good 10 minutes until it's just lukewarm, even cold. Now, this is way too hot, but we're gonna use this time to look at the cheese we're gonna be using and the ingredients for the migaine, which is the mixture of cream and eggs. And now let's talk about the filling for our quiche, which is of course the cheese. Now, let me put this straight. If you want your quiche or your cheese quiche to stand out, the only way to achieve that is to use good quality cheeses. If you go in the supermarket and pick a random low quality cheese, your quiche is just simply not going to be good. You're going to have this very basic kind of cheese taste. And you want some layering, this is why I'm using a triple cheese kind of quiche. This is a bit of a cheese board. I went out and bought different cheese, and you've got here the Comté cheese, which is a hard cheese, kind of nice and nutty, a little bit salty. The Gruyère cheese, similar, from Switzerland. You've got le Bleu Dauphinois, which is a very creamy cheese, but with some blue veins into it. This is an Italian cheese, a Gorgonzola Dolce, so it's the sweet version because I found the other sharp version a bit too sharp for the quiche. And this is the famous Fontina cheese from Italy, which is a great all-rounder. Now, there's no rule when it comes to which cheese you want to use. I'm going to be using here a mixture. I'll show you exactly what I'm going to use when we're going to be making the quiche, but it is really up to you to pick up the one that you want. I always recommend try to have at least a good base of hard cheese, even if you use a cheddar, for instance, a good quality farmhouse cheddar or anything like that, and then you can freestyle with other cheeses, okay? But it is super important to use these very classic French, Italian, Swiss cheese to really achieve a great result. My selection of cheese is made, they're all here. I decided to use the Comté because it's nice, nutty and salty. I'm going to use the Fontina cheese because it's a little bit milder, but it's got that soft, creamy texture that can really melt as well. And for the top, as a little touch of decoration, I'm going to have little cubes of the Bleu Dauphinois. This cheese here, the Comté, is going to be grated because that's a hard cheese. So anything that's a hard cheese, you're going to need to grate it. While these ones, we're going to cut them in little cubes, because you don't want to try to grate this, okay? So you don't have to grate automatically. Anything that's soft, you make cubes. Anything that's harder, you can grate it. For the rest, the migaine, same as before. We get the 400 milliliters of cream, and this time we're going to do the classic technique, just using the 4 whole eggs. I don't have any extra egg yolk. Salt and pepper. We're not going to be using any nutmeg, but that's it for the filling. And now let's make the migaine. So the migaine, remember the cream and the egg, so 400 ml of cream. Now the cream, lots of you sometimes ask me in the club, it looks like the cream you're using is like a crème fraîche, almost very thick, because it's an organic cream. But today I've got a standard supermarket pure cream, and look, that's very liquid. So it doesn't matter as long as it's pure cream, even if it's liquid like this, it is not a problem. We're gonna be adding straight the egg. I've beaten the eggs already, so that's 4 whole eggs beaten into an omelette. Okay, and I'm gonna give this a little whisk. Being careful. So you would note that because I didn't have this extra egg yolk, it's not as yellow. Next will come the seasoning. So pepper, absolutely necessary, a grind of black pepper. And the salt here, you have to be extremely careful because the cheese is extremely salty. So a little bit of salt, and that's it. What I like to add when it comes to a cheese quiche, it is this very thinly, about 1 or 2 tablespoons of thinly diced or chopped chives. Okay, and that gives the whole thing. It's a great flavor, I think, with cheese, because cheese can be really very strong, and it's always the same kind of taste, you know, all that cheesy taste. So it's a welcome addition to have a little bit of chives. It is optional, okay? It is really up to you. But that's about it for the migaine. Now we're ready to assemble our quiche. My quiche crust here is ready. It's got the right temperature. And now we're ready to assemble. So we're gonna go in a bit of a different way here. You can use a pair of tongs, but we're gonna start by putting the grated cheese. Now remember that the cheese I'm using, you don't have to use this per se. I would say the best use one hard cheese, one soft cheese, and maybe a blue cheese, okay? So first, this is me. I'm putting a layer of Comté, okay? And I make sure that everything in there is placed like this, and that is going to be my base. Then we're going to have the fontina cheese, but these are cubes, okay? And I'm going to place them everywhere. Now for the third cheese, the blue cheese, we're actually not going to put it now. We're first going to put all of the mixture over. We're going to start to cook the quiche, and only when it's partly cooked, we're going to put the cheese, try to have it at the very, very top. Okay, so first off, actually, I think I can be generous. Up, look at that. Ooh, think of just enough. That's nice. And I'm not going to put the blue cheese as I said, because I think I want the blue cheese to stand out a little bit. So I'm going to make sure all the cheese is under. And that's it. So we are done with this. We're now going to put this in a preheated oven, this time at 180 degrees. On the third rack, starting from the top. I'll just show you in a sec exactly where it is. And we're going to cook this. We're going to start at least for a good 15, maybe 20 minutes until that really melts and sets. And then we'll add at the last minute the blue cheese for final coloration. So the cooking time is almost the same as the quiche Lorraine, except the temperature here is much lower. So we're going to take it very, very easy. And we know the crust has got the color already, so we don't have to worry. Let's go in the oven. For the oven, sorry about that, but you got 4 racks. There's 4 elements, so top one, so 1, 2, 3, and this is the one, and not totally at the bottom for this one. So the third starting from the top. I call this usually the middle rack, but actually it's not exactly the middle, but that's where you want to place your quiche, okay? It's been 15 minutes, so you see it's start to cook well, and I've placed all the pieces of blue cheese. Now, this is optional. If you want, you don't put the blue cheese, and you can leave it just with that patches of the chives in there. It's good as well, and that goes back in the oven. Now, I'm going to cook this for another 15, maybe 20 minutes. Now, in case it colors too much, it starts to color, your cheese, you can cover this with foil. Don't make it too brown, otherwise it's going to look a bit odd. It took me 30 minutes exactly, and this is the result of our 3 cheese quiche. And I've left it here to rest because it is very important that when you use cheese, you can't cut your quiche when it's warm. You really have to wait until it's at a minimum kind of lukewarm. This is the right temperature. If you wait too long and it really gets cold, the problem with cheese quiches, they tend to be really, really firm and not as appetizing. So I always find that a kind of a sweet spot, kind of lukewarm or a bit less is ideal. So what I'm going to do here is try to, of course, cut a slice, and we're going to taste our creation here. The reason I've set up this little table here is to really to show that this is how you should present these types of quiche with these nice looking quiche pans. You don't want to take the quiche out of the mold. It looks perfectly fine like this with a little bit of decoration. And, the crust popping up on there. So what we're going to do here is to cut a slice. It's very careful. It's still, you know what? It's still warm. I'm a bit concerned here because I don't want it to fall apart. But we need to try it. So as I said, remember the porcelain, you're not going to make any kind of scratch or mark when we use a knife. And so you can absolutely afford to cut a slice of quiche in here. Look at that. And it's perfect. We've got here, we've got the cheese here, the other side. I think that was the fontina cheese. And the slice, I'll just put it on the side here. It looks pretty good. That is the interior. So you see it's kind of whitish, which is good. It's not too yellow because otherwise it's too eggy if we would have added some egg yolk. So I'm going to go on the side and have a bite. The crust is good, nice and thick. It's a bit thick. But I'm on the side here just cutting a little slice, and let me eat this. You know what? I think I've got this right. Wow. Yeah. In total, I think we've got like 300 grams of cheese, and it's really, you know what? It really pays off. Like the types of cheese in there. You can feel the classic Comté, very salty and stuff like that, but the welcome addition. These are the cheese, like the fondant, much softer, much not as salty, and very soft. Look at this. You see, I don't know if you can see these white bits, and that the other style of cheese. So it's almost like mozzarella. Extremely soft. And that with a salad is great. I just bite on a piece of blue cheese. And this is the little nuggets of pleasure. You bite on the blue cheese, like boom, wow, explosion. Oh, it's a delicious quiche actually, very good. Now, this quiche really got me excited and has to be one of the best cheese quiche I've ever created. And I can't wait to start to take you through the other ones. So that completes that chapter here for the classic. And you've learned how to make the quiche Lorraine, just with the bacon, the cheese quiche. You've learned how to make the short crust by hand and with the stand mixer. And you've learned how to do the blind baking. These are all techniques we're going to be using in the next chapter. But the focus we're going to have on the next chapter is how to handle certain ingredients when you make different types of quiche. That means how to use meats, how to use vegetables, and how to use seafood so that you still have something that looks good, that holds together, and of course with new flavor you surely haven't tried yet. So I'll be waiting for you on the next chapter. I'll see you then.